How you doing? Today we're going to plant some purple sweet potatoes in this container. I've already prepared this soil. It's a peat-based potting soil, but I've added a lot of compost, probably a third to a half compost. I've added some bone meal and some eggshells and just a little bit of azomite. I made this compost, but if you don't have any, buy it. It works great and it'll really help your sweet potatoes grow. So because this is peat based, it's real fluffy, and initially I thought that was a good thing, but in my experience the soil needs to be a little bit more, I'll say, compacted, and that'll help hold the water and give the sweet potatoes something to kind of push against as they grow. You can't use super clay-based soil, but I found if it's just a little compacted, that seems to help. Now, the other thing that helps is very little nitrogen. So if you notice, I didn't say I added any blood meal or fish fertilizer, because if your sweet potatoes are just growing all kinds of vines, they're just going to be all happy and just keep growing vines and not put any sweet potatoes in the ground. So this is peat based, but I've actually pushed it down a little bit, and not super compacted, but got it a little bit compacted. So the two things I found out with sweet potatoes is a little bit of soil compaction when you're growing them in a container, and very little nitrogen. The other thing I'm going to do before I plant these is put in some mulch. I live in a very, very hot climate, and although sweet potatoes love that, I don't want these to dry out all the time. So I'm adding probably 2 or 3 inches of mulch, and that's going to keep the soil all cool, not too hot, but the main thing is keep it moist. Okay, there we go. All right, now for the slips, I'm going to do something a little different. Because I'm growing this somewhere else in my garden, I'm going to take off a runner from a plant, and you can see I just broke it off here, and I'm going to use this instead of slip. If you're planting slips, great, that of course will work, but you can see these runners have roots growing at each little node right there, see? So these will also produce sweet potatoes, and for me this saves a lot of time on creating slips. So I just take one of these runners. Now, since it doesn't have any roots right now, or barely any, it can't support all this green growth. So what I do is I just take off as many leaves as I can until I get to the tip. And let's see. So I'd use something like this. Very little green growth, just enough. These will root in just a few days, and whether it's here, or wherever these produce roots, that's where I'll get sweet potatoes. So I'm going to save that one for another container. I've already made some here, and all I'm going to do is just make a little hole, stick these guys in here. Let's see, I've got 4 in this container. I've seen other people say, don't do too many slips or whatever in a container, and that's probably good advice. I'm going to cut that one a little shorter. Again, these don't take long to root, just a couple days. I do notice when I do it this way, and I think that would be the same for if you were using slips, they'll tend to wilt, but they're so fast rooting that as long as they get established real quick, they'll be fine. So there we go. Now, in my experience, just the way I grow things, these tend to take probably a little more than 90 days. I've done it, and I've done it for like 120 when I've been busy and haven't harvested them. So, you know, that's a key factor, is just waiting. And what'll happen is these will grow. The runner or the vine will start going out. It'll probably go way over this container. That's fine with me. I let it, you know, fall on the ground and act like a weed barrier. Now, and if sometimes it'll go down to the ground and root and make another sweet potato, that's fine too. Okay, last thing I want to do is just water these in. I want to get them really good and saturated. Now I'll check these every day until they get established to make sure they're not getting too wilted. If they do start to get wilted, I'm going to cover them with a white cloth to keep them a little cooler and keep the sun off of them. And just to show you this works, here's some sweet potatoes I harvested today from another container that I grew the same way. And they're pretty beautiful. Nice purple color inside. It's really funky ones too. I don't know what happened with that, but that's a nice one. It's huge. You get different sizes, different shapes, smaller and bigger. So the things that I found out about growing these is very little nitrogen, good soil, a lot of compost, kind of compacted. A fair amount of phosphorus and potassium, by the way. Even though it's a root vegetable, it needs more than phosphorus. But the main thing is very little nitrogen. And then just waiting. You know, part of the reason if they're not getting big is maybe they've not been in the ground long enough. So I'll do some updates on this, but that's how I plant sweet potatoes. Appreciate you watching. Don't forget to like this video. Please remember to subscribe. You can also follow me at Better Vegetables on Instagram. Have a great day.